G'day, it's Dave Lupton from Flaming Wreckage here. You might have heard me having a good old chat with Andy in episode 284. If you enjoyed that chat and thrash or death metal's your bag, then I reckon you'll dig the new Flaming Wreckage album, Cathedral of Bones. You can get your fix of riffs on your preferred streaming platform, or if you want to support us even more, head to flamingwreckage.com/shop and pick up the album and a bit of merch while you're at it. Cheers for listening. Over to you, Andy.
Hey, welcome back to the Andy Social Podcast, episode 298. And my guest on this episode is Kosta Papazoglou. And anybody that knows me knows that I'm a master at pronouncing people's names. So there you go, Kosta Papazoglou. And Kosta, I've known for so many years, is the guitarist in Eyefear, one of our more iconic melodic metal bands, power metal bands, progressive metal bands that have come out of this country over the years. They've been around for so long, since 1994, getting closer to 30 years out there. And it's always refreshing to talk to somebody that's been a part of like the Australian metal scene and just a part of like the metal scene in general, and just being able to reflect back and get their perspective on what it's like just playing in a band for so long, and just to see so many different people come and go, the different chapters, and also just to get a bit of insight on a band that, it's been a while between releases. And we talk about all this sort of stuff in this chat. I mean, Kosta's an absolute legend. He's one of the nicest guys out there in metal and Australian metal. And I'm really, really excited to see what the guys have in store with the next Eyefear release, which is coming very, very soon. So I'm going to have links in the show notes, of course, over at andysocial.net and andydowling.net, and in the description of wherever you're listening to this through right now. Go and follow Kosta on the socials. Go and follow Eyefear on the socials. I'll put Spotify links, YouTube links, all that sort of stuff so you can listen to them. But enough crapping on from me. Please enjoy this great chat with Kosta Papazoglou.
Mate, it's unbelievable. I was actually supposed to start recording some guitars last night.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden, so we've been holding off, like we were supposed to do all this shit last year.
Yeah.
And, so with all the COVID thing that sort of happened, we said, well, bugger this, who knows what's going to happen. We just let it all go. Oh, we're still doing stuff, but obviously we weren't able to catch up. And, then we started getting things back on track, and I was actually going to start recording some guitars last night, and then we pulled the pin again for a week. So,
I mean, you guys aren't the fastest moving band in the world for a whole range of different reasons, but I think sort of the last 12 months and sort of getting to this point now, it must be just so painful, because I think from what I can recall, I saw you guys play, and it was down your way, and it must have been like 2019 or something, like August 2019. And I was in town. I quickly stopped by, and I think I saw you guys play.
Oh, with the Eternal.
Yeah. And I remember just having a quick chat, and obviously, like, Ricardo's on stage singing with you guys as well. It sounds great. And I think it was just sort of on the verge of, like, you guys really getting some momentum in place and really sort of kicking into, like, hey, we're going to have a big year next year. Lots of stuff going on, and obviously, poof, it's just not happening.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. That was supposed to be like our last show, and we only really did it because the guys from Eternal really wanted us to play and asked us, and we thought, okay, well, we'll do a cool venue. We never played with the guys before. I've known Mark for a very, very long time, and I was like, okay, let's do it. And then we'll get stuck into finishing off the songs and recording, and then we sort of started finishing off the songs. And got everything up to where we wanted to get it, and then all of a sudden, the old COVID hit last year, and say no more.
Oh, mate, it's just and it's frustrating now, because we're like, it feels like we're so close to just getting back to normal, and then just something happens, and we just get thrown back again. It's like, oh, mate, like hell, like even for us and our band, we were like umming and ahhing a while ago about, do we try and do some shows later in the year, like tail end of this year. And then, as these little outbreaks happen around the country, it sort of just continues to sort of solidify the fact that we're not doing anything this year apart from, we'll put some music out where we can, but we're not going to get out and play shows. It's just no point, because I'm watching mates just cancelling or postponing shows left, right and centre. And it's just like, oh man, it's hard to putting on a show and it actually goes ahead, let alone having to deal with the postponement and all that other rubbish.
Exactly. It's like we really wanted to do Storm Rider. In WA. But it was, it's not even worth considering because you just don't know what, and flights to good old Perth aren't cheap. So the last thing you want to be doing is organising stuff like that. And then, you're stuck over there or whatever. It's like, so you don't even consider these stuff anymore. And it's a shame because, this thing's just bloody dead. I mean, people obviously dying from music, but, we sort of looked at it in the way where it was like, okay, well, what's the point of releasing something if you can't sort of do any shows to promote it a bit, you know what I mean? So we just we just put a halt to everything.
Oh, yeah. And it's been interesting sort of talking to a lot of other mates, in bands and getting everyone's perspective on it. And I think it's sort of calmed a lot of those musos that we both know who are always like panicking to try and do something really quickly, try and get music out, try and tour. And it's this really competitive sort of thing. And I think that's forced those people to slow down and realize that, what we do, what we enjoy doing, it's the long game. It's part of our lives. And if it takes you a year or it takes you 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is, I mean, it just doesn't matter because, in the grand scheme of things, you ultimately it's part of your life and it'll come when it comes. So I think it's sort of sent a good message to some of those guys. But I think the rest of us who are used to working at a slower pace anyway, it's sort of like, it's better when we've got control over that pace, not when someone's slowing it down for us.
Yeah. Well, looking back at our last 8 years or so, I mean, so many things have happened and that have affected what we've been able to do. Whether we wanted to move quick or not, really, we wouldn't have been able to do it anyway. So, it's been a bit of a grind, but I mean, that's sort of been part of Eyefear, I guess, over the years. I mean, we celebrated 25 years of our first album back in 96. And it took us 8 years after that to finally release 9 Elements, which was our first, CD to be signed, and we had management and we had it all happening. So, just things happen, unfortunately, and just time flies. I mean, you don't even, you know what it's like as well, being in a band for so long. Like, you plan for something and it's like, okay, let's do this in, like, say, the next 12 to 18 months, and this happens, there goes another 6 months, that happens, there goes, and it's amazing how quick time flies.
Oh, it's crazy because I've always been, or I keep thinking that I'm always the young guy in like the metal scene in Australia, where I go out to gigs, everyone's older than me, and now I'm starting to come into that next sort of bracket of guys that have been around the traps for a little while longer, and you've got these new guys coming through, and it's insane to see how quickly time's passed. I mean, I think one of the last times we played together was down your way as well, and I think that was like, that would have to be close to 10 years ago now. It's just ridiculous how long. Oh, it probably hasn't been that long, but it's getting like 7 odd years since we played a gig, and at least in Melbourne. So it's just weird.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. When was the last time we played?
It might have been.
I think it was probably down your way.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know where the last gig was. I just remember playing a show with you guys, and I think it might have been. It wasn't the East Brunswick. It was. I can't remember. I can't really remember now. They've all melted into one now.
Yeah,
it's a bit like that.
Same. Sorry.
So a question. I think a good place to sort of, create a foundation with this chat is, like you mentioned before, like in 1996, you guys put out the first release, and I think you guys had already been around for a couple of years at that point, as far as putting the band together and getting it started. What the hell was the metal scene like in Melbourne specifically, or even just in Australia at that time? And I mean, I was listening to tracks from that first release, and it's got a bit of power metal in there, but it's very sort of progressive as well. Yeah. What was it like? Because no doubt there wasn't a lot of sort of melodic metal bands sort of happening around that time. I mean, what was it like when you guys were putting it out?
Yeah, look, it was a little bit different. I mean, the Melbourne scene, especially back then, there was a band, I'm not sure if you remember them, called Hyperion.
Yeah, I do.
Amazing band. They were, probably the sort of premier sort of, power metal sort of, let's say, sort of melodic band. at the time. But the Melbourne scene was mainly dominated from death metal and sort of thrash metal sort of band. You know what I mean? We had, there was heaps of thrash metal bands and stuff, heaps of venues to play at. So, yeah, I mean, our sort of release was a little bit left field, and we were really, really young, obviously, back then, really raw. And, it just so happened. I mean, the band sort of formed in 94, and it took a couple of years to get it all together. But we hit the studio basically, after the band was formed, we hit the studio basically like 6 months. It took us like a year to sort of get it all done. Obviously, back then, there was no Pro Tools and all that sort of stuff, so quite time-consuming. And obviously being young and very inexperienced, we were sort of, guided through with it, and it took a while. But, we got it all done, and we're really happy with the release. And things really, we're looking really, really up. But unfortunately, about a year down the track, when we started planning to record like a 3-track demo to send out to some of the labels that were wanting some extra stuff to see where the next stage of the band was heading, that's when we had lost our singer, and we were back to square one.
And so begins the journey.
Yeah, well, 96 to 2004, I think. We had Jim from Hyperion then joined us. We were quite close friends, so he was the obvious choice, and we had him in the band for about a year and a half. But things didn't quite work out. He didn't want to sort of do that sort of stuff anymore, and that was fair enough. And then there was a stage where it was just myself, the drummer and the bass player, just rehearsing away, writing stuff. And then in 2001, Danny came along. And it took us, X amount of time to get him up to date. And we went in, recorded the album, and it got released. I mean, that was all recorded back in 2003, but, it's like by the time you muck around with all the labels and stuff, and it didn't get released until 2004.
Yeah. It's one of the questions I was going to ask you, and it's probably a good place to ask it is, having, and now you got Ricardo in the band as well. So you've gone through these different chapters of the band where, traditionally that singer, that front person is like the face of the band, and that's distinctive, the vocal and all that sort of stuff. And obviously there's a lot of great examples of really famous bands that have managed to successfully transition from one singer to another. But for you guys to go through that so many times over the career, and obviously Danny was there probably the longest, that sort of solidified a lot of the releases that you guys put out. But I mean, what was it like for you personally to have to sort of mentally adjust to knowing that you've got to get a new front person in to sort of take it on board? And obviously they've got to bring in their own personality, they've got to sing the songs, they've got to have the conviction. I mean, was this just a massive mental hurdle every single time?
Not really, because when Jason, we parted ways with Jason on that first original release in 96, Edge of Existence, I was already really, really good mates with Jim. So he was the obvious choice because Hyperion had broken up. And he was doing absolutely nothing at the time, Jim, and obviously being mates, we were talking. So he was the obvious choice straight away. But the thing was, after about 12 months, we sort of realised, well, both of us, you could tell he sort of didn't want to go down that path. He wanted something different. He didn't want to do the power metal thing anymore. So, we parted ways, and then I had a chat with, I don't know if you remember back then, Chris from VP, guitarist from VP, was in a band called Mind State.
Yes, I do.
Now, Alex is the vocalist in that band was another close friend of mine. And they had disbanded as well. So I actually had chats with him as well. But again, he was another one that didn't want to go down that path. So it took a bit of time after Jim. Obviously, like I said, I think it took about 3 years, and we got in touch with Danny. And, I mean, the writing we've never really written music to suit a vocalist. If that sort of makes sense. Like a lot of bands, right, well, this is our vocalist, so we've got to sort of write in this sort of way, if you know what I mean, to suit. But because we've always had vocalists come in later, the music was always written. So it wasn't really that difficult. It was actually quite easy. Whereas now that we're on the subject about Ricardo, it's been a bit different with him because there was only 2 or 3 tunes that were finished before he joined, like new tunes that I had written and completed. And all the stuff that we've finished now has basically been me and him adding, 50-50. So it's been really good in that way because it's opened new doors. He's a really, really good songwriter, awesome guitarist. So his ideas and mine just simply work really, really well. So, yeah. Going back to the original question, it's never been a mental block. It's been quite easy. We're lucky.
It's nice. It's refreshing in a way because I think, stereotypically, bands put so much emphasis on that front guy, and obviously, it would be the same for you guys when you're together as a unit and performing and all that sort of stuff. But the mechanics behind the band, it's a case of, well, the band sort of continues to write, but not be dictated or be held down by one particular personality. It's I guess the songwriting is bigger than any individual in the band.
Yeah, that's sort of the way we've approached it. So yeah, we've never had that issue. So it's been good in that way. And like I said, with Rick, it was such a smooth transition. It's just it's like he's been in the band for since '96. It really is, because he's quite a versatile vocalist as well. Like he can he can sing all the old stuff, and obviously with the new stuff, well, it was written with him. So, but very, very versatile guy. Can sing a whole heap of styles. He's not sort of stuck in sort of, let's say, he's a real power metal singer where he can sing the ballad stuff, he can sing the angry stuff. He's really, really good like that. So it's been very inspiring, let's say.
Must be a weight off your shoulders to not have to, because I assume that in the past, like, you would obviously have contributions from other people along the way, but this has been your baby. I mean, between yourself and Zane, like I think Zane's been there since day dot as well. This is your baby from right at the beginning. So to have sort of Rick come in and sort of really sort of be a heavy contributor to what you guys do, I mean, that must be just weight off your shoulders big time.
Yeah, definitely. It's not just that, like with the help wise and stuff like that. He's the way he's made it easy is the fact that his writing like sort of sits well with mine. So I mean, I can't give you any examples now, like because we haven't released it yet. But if we ever have a chat about the new CD, I can sort of explain to you, well, this song here, I had 3/4 of it written, and he's come along and added this riff in, and it's just fit it in like a glove and just changed the whole thing, the whole dynamic of the track. So that's where it's been really, really good and inspiring for me, because I've never been the sort of person where I won't take in somebody else's ideas. If it's going to work, then you'd be silly not to let it work, if you know what I mean. So he's been really, really good like that.
I guess it's all for the for the greater good of the song itself. Like it's
exactly
it's bigger than all of you guys.
Yeah, so I've never been one of those guys where I'm going to write the whole album and I don't want anybody else's stuff. I mean, like I said, when something works and it sounds really, really good, and not only that, it's inspired me as well, because he's shown me stuff that he's done sort of with his other band as well, how it opens different doors and you think a little bit different too. So it's been good, because when you write, I mean, you could probably speak to Tim about this, when you've been writing songs for so long, you sort of have your own little formula, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And when somebody comes along and says, why don't you try this, something that you normally wouldn't try, and it works, it sort of opens different doors. So it's been good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, going back to what you said before about what Melbourne was like in the mid-90s with you guys getting started and putting that first release out, was it a case where, similar to, I guess, what was happening with Dungeon and even Lord when we sort of changed over, were you guys doing a lot of like mixed bill shows where you were playing with a lot of death metal and thrash metal bands just because there wasn't enough sort of power metal bands to go around to keep doing gigs? Because you mentioned there's heaps of venues around at the time. Were you doing like really odd bills of mixed genres?
Yeah, occasionally we were, because it was only really ourselves and Mindscape at the time, which was Chris B's old band. So we used to play quite a fair bit together. So we would do a launch, that'd be our support. They'd do a launch, we'd be their support. But there's only so many gigs we could do together. So occasionally, yeah, we'd play at a place, well, the old Hi-Fi in the city, or Wall Street, whatever you want to call it. Back in the day, it used to be called the Hell Club, which was a heavy metal nightclub here every Saturday night. and that would have quite a diverse lineup. So it'd be us, and might be like with a death metal band and maybe a thrash metal band. So yeah, it was quite diverse the nights, which was good because people used to dig it. Not only that, you played to different faces, if you know what I mean. So, you know, I'm pretty open-minded with my metal. I listen to all sorts of stuff. So just because someone's usually goes there to, let's say, they were going there to watch a death metal band, didn't mean that they wouldn't like Eyefear, for example. So it was good.
Yeah, I've always preached about that over the years. It's, I mean, some of the best gigs that we've played have been sort of mixed bills with an eclectic bunch of bands getting together, and I think in the end, a lot of metal fans just love to have a drink and be at a show, and you know, whether they're up the front or standing up the back or whatever, I think that they appreciate just being there, and it's amazing to see, you know, what you can discover. Like I've certainly done that. I've rocked up to a show and just been there for one or two bands, and then you end up discovering something really new that you didn't expect to enjoy, and there you go.
Yeah, I remember a lot of our CD launches back in the day. We used to have quite diverse lineups. We used to get, like, you know, have 3 power metal bands on the night because it was probably a bit too much, to be honest. I mean, you know, it was so. I remember one specific one we did at the ESPY, which was the A World Full of Grey CD launch. And we had quite a diverse, and people loved it. They were like, "Oh, okay, I've never seen these guys before," and it was really, really good. Huge night, and I think that's probably why festivals work the way they do as well. I mean, what's the point of having, you know, at a festival of 20 power metal bands? Do you know what I mean? So, you know, diversity is a good thing. I mean, most people that listen to metal these days don't sort of listen to one style, let's say, and I've never been one to sort of pigeonhole it all into one style. I mean, for me, metal's metal. Whether it's black metal, you know, power metal, heavy metal, I'll listen to it. If it's something I like, I'll listen to it. So,
well, that's it. I always say a good song's a good song, regardless. So, you know, and you can. I think especially when you start to write and record music yourself, then I think you really start to appreciate the effort that bands have to put into their craft, depending no matter what sort of genre they decide to pick up and play. And so you can always sort of stand back and really respect and admire what people are doing, even if it's not your initial go-to, you know, genre of music. You can sort of go, oh, that's actually really cool. I like how they do that.
Yep, 100% agree with you. I mean, yeah, because people, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. For me, when I look at metal, I look at it as a whole. I don't sort of look at it as like subgenres, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, because like I said just before, I like all sorts of stuff. So, and there'll be genres that I'm not quite into, but there's always something that you'll probably hear and actually give you an idea. Oh, that's pretty cool. I could probably incorporate that, you know, some sort of idea like that. So that's why I like to keep an open mind with it as well. As a songwriting perspective, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even, pulling stuff from the weirdest of places, like, and if you listen to a song, like, you know, you listen to an Eyefear song or a Lord song or whatever, and you might not actually immediately pick up where it's come from, but it'll come from the most random of places. I mean, we've picked up stuff out of pop songs. It just sounds great, and you put it into your own machine, make it sound like you guys, and comes out the other side and sounds like a metal riff or a metal, arrangement or whatever it is. Yeah,
totally agree with you, dude. Totally agree.
So I said before about Zane being in the band with yourself since day dot. I think one of the things that I really admire with bands is just the longevity that, you know, bands make a decision just to play the long game. And like, I mean, we're certainly a band like this where we've had so many people come and go over the years, and you just continue to sort of see you just see the future. You see sort of long term down the track, and you don't sort of panic too much. You just keep plodding along. But I mean, what's kept the two of you guys together? I mean, you know, that's a bloody long time. You mentioned 25 years ago, a couple of years ago, so I think you're up to about 27 odd years now. That's a long time to be playing in a band with anybody. I mean, what's kept you and Zane together?
I don't know. Well, to be honest, Zane and I have been in bands since probably we were 16 years old. We were in back at school, we were in a thrash metal band with another mate on guitars. I was actually playing bass at the time. And Zane was on drums, obviously, and we had Michael Carlisle, one of the original guitarists from Mortification.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yep, he was playing guitars and singing, and we had another close mate. He was playing guitar, so that started. I think that band was called Betrayer or something back in the day, or something shit like that. And we were 16 at the time, and then we started a band together called Anthanath. You might have heard a little bit of
maybe.
We've played a few shows back in the day.
Okay.
And then the singer, because he had the name, let's say the Anthanath. We parted ways with him, and that's how we started Eyefear. So, yeah, me and Zane have got like a 30-year plus history together of playing in band.
So what is it? I mean, obviously you don't think about these things too often. It's sort of just a natural thing, but sort of if you reflect back, I mean, what's kept you guys on the same path together after so many years? Because no doubt at times when you have people come and go, I mean, although you're continuing to write and be creative, it must be frustrating at times. I mean, what do you think that's sort of kept you both relatively sane and on the same path?
I'm not quite sure. I mean, I guess over the years, it's funny because, like, when I write a riff, for example, I already know what he's going to play. I know so I'll program a drum riff in, for example, for a demo for him, and it's basically what I know what he's going to play. So I think it's just that connection. We just have that understanding of what we need from each other. So if I'm come up with a riff, he usually knows what I want played, and vice versa. So yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, we just know each other's playing so well. So we've just connected, and we've been lucky in that way because it's just made things easier, obviously. And yeah, hard to explain, but it's that connection, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird question because obviously, like I think with a lot of friendships that you build with people and relationships, you don't overthink those things. You don't try and analyze the why behind it. It just happens, and that's that natural sort of thing that comes into play. But I find it fascinating because there are so many bands that just once the dynamic changes the first time or the first couple of times, that the band as a whole just fizzles out, and one guy will go off on their own and start a whole new chapter with a new band or whatever it might be. But like I like the idea of the both of you guys sitting down, with a drink in a dark room and just sort of after a lineup change or something, just going, like, we're still on track. Eyefear in 2030, it's still going to, like, we're, no matter how long it takes, we're going to keep putting out albums. We're just going to keep going. I love the idea of something like that happening. Yeah.
Look, we've never been a band. To be honest with you, I don't look towards sort of next year. I think that's probably what's kept the band going for so long. So because for me, if I was to say, I'll probably give it away in 5 years or whatever. I mean, because you just don't know what's going to happen down the track, yeah? So I probably take an album at a time. So when, like, for example, this album, like, if people ask me, how much longer are you going to do it, or you've been doing it for so long, well, I'm like, well, this could be my last album. I don't know. You know what I mean? So I take one album at a time, and I think that's why we've lasted as long as what we have. And even when, some pretty important members have left in the past, or, we've parted ways, the band's always sort of stayed strong, and there's never been a real panic. So, because like you just said before, when members leave, it sort of rocks the ship, and how are you going to replace him, and how are you going to do that? We've never panicked. That's the funny part. It's never been, oh shit. Like, for example, let's say Sammy, the original keyboard player, who we had for a big part of the band. We were writing songs together, recording all the stuff together. I thought when he left, it was going to be hard, but you know what? You move on, you find someone else, things always work out. So we've never had that panic. So, and that's probably what's kept the band going for as long as what it has.
I mean, I certainly thought when Danny left, I mean, Danny was there, and obviously Danny has his own persona and his reputation that he's had from other bands as well over the years. When he left, I remember thinking, going, oh shit, like, that's such a big thing for Eyefear, at least the perception was. And how does a band sort of not so much recover, but to keep going and to keep looking forward and keep moving and finding, the ways to fill that gap. And I think just the way you explained it is it's so logical. It makes sense. It's almost like every little project. It's like the album's a project, and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel because it's an album, so you write, you record, and you put it out, and then after that, who knows? But that's what's front of mind at the moment. So when you lose someone from the band, or someone parts ways, I guess you're just thinking sort of very short term and just going, okay, well, what's the next thing we've got to do, rather than panicking about that 5-year plan or something like that.
Yeah, that's right, and it's always been like that. Yeah, so when we parted ways with Danny, I mean, I could feel like from everyone that I'd spoken to, they were like, oh, what are you going to do, and how are you going to replace him, and that. And basically what we did was, and we didn't even discuss it, to be honest with you. We just took a step back for a few months and just let it all settle down, because obviously there was people calling what's going to happen, and then the label at the time was asking questions, and it was like, we just took a step back and said, give it a little bit of time and we'll sort it out. And yeah, sure enough, it did. But look, at the time, it probably was a little bit of a shock, because Danny had been around for quite some time, obviously. We had quite a long history. But, there was never panic stations, let's say. And there was always, to come up with a solution was actually quite easy. And we had quite a few options, to be honest with you. Like, we were thinking about going down the international path, getting an international singer, because there was a couple of guys that I've been in touch with over the years, some really, really cool singers I always wanted to work with. We were going to go down that path, and then all of a sudden I caught up with Rick out of the blue, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
It's amazing how things work out sometimes. It just fell into place. I didn't actually chase Rick, and he didn't chase me. We just got in touch, just to say hello, and the rest is history, like I said. Yeah,
I love it. It certainly takes the pressure off when you don't have to sort of actively go out there and hunt, and it just sort of it's sort of those moments that you least expect.
Yeah. Look, definitely. I mean, going through the whole audition thing, we've been lucky enough never to have to go through that. Because actually, no, that's a lie. Actually, when Danny joined, just before Danny, we had another singer try out. I won't say who he was, because he's in another band.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the only time we actually had another, a couple of singers come in to try out. But apart from that, it's always been, okay, well, he's left, we've just got him, and so forth. So it's been good.
What's been, I think you sort of mentioned earlier in the chat about sort of the last 8 or so years with the band, and there's been a number of different things that have happened along the way that sort of put the time frame out a bit. I mean, I think the last album came out in 2012, I think, off the top of my head. I think the Inception of Darkness.
Yeah, right at the end of December 2012, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, what's been some of the things along the way that sort of, led to, close to a 10-year gap in putting out an album? Is it just life?
No, yes and no. I mean, 2013 was quite a busy year for us, because we had done, early on 2013, we had done the Nightwish tour nationally, which was really cool. Then we had done a couple of, really good-sized local shows. Then we had the Epica support, which was in the middle of the year. Then we'd done a couple more shows, a couple interstate shows as well. And then we had done what else? We'd done another tour support that year. Oh, the Stradivarius shows as well. So 2013, like, even though we really wanted to knuckle down and get, the next album started, that year went by so quick, because we'd never done that many shows in a year. That year went by so quick, it's just we didn't even realise. And then 2013, by that time, and then we had Danny had a few health issues, as a lot of people sort of already knew from our posts and stuff. And we needed him, he needed time to get himself better, and just time went by from there, really. And we really couldn't do much. We did the odd show here and there just to, sort of do something. But in hindsight, thinking about it now, we probably shouldn't have. But yeah, like, we probably lost a good 4 years dealing with all that sort of stuff. And that's what sort of led us to sort of part ways with Danny. And, he needed time to himself to get himself right, and we needed sort of time to move on. And yeah, then Rick joined the band 2018. So, yeah.
Already getting close to 3 years now that he's been in the band, and
Yeah.
and I don't think, I mean, it was, obviously you guys have been planning for so long now to get new music out there. I mean, I've no doubt for him, he's probably just chomping at the bit himself to sort of really show people what he's capable of with, in the context of Eyefear, because obviously he's proven himself in other bands over the years. But
yeah,
I mean, when I saw you guys play in Melbourne in 2019, and hearing him sing these songs, and it was just so refreshing, and the way he sings, he's got a particular style that I really enjoy as well. And it was just a real nice blend with the worlds sort of coming together with yourself and the guys, and then obviously Rick coming in and bringing his fresh take on it. And I just remember standing there watching, going, this is really exciting. Like this is a really exciting, moment for you guys as far as what's going to be coming up ahead. And I think a lot of people are going to be really, really surprised and excited about what eventually comes out. And I mean, obviously we're a little bit further down the track now having a chat, but I mean, with obviously you guys still putting, final touches and getting songs together for a release. I mean, to put you on the spot, I mean, what is the kind of timelines that you're thinking about as far as what you want to do? I mean, putting aside random lockdowns that sort of throw everything out of whack.
Well, like I said, he joined in 2018, and so the plan was basically, we thought the perfect way to introduce Rick was obviously to do a few shows. So we had done Perth, we had done Sydney as well. Obviously, we did a local show. We did a couple of local shows actually, and then we did Adelaide as well. Churches of Steel. We did quite a few shows actually. That was sort of an introduction, and we actually played some newer stuff as well that no one had ever heard. Some of the stuff that we're going to be recording. So, and then obviously the whole COVID thing happened, which basically wiped out a whole year. But yeah, look, recording wise, for us has never been, once the songs are sort of down, then it doesn't take a song to record. So we're hoping to have something out by the end of the year, let's say.
Cool.
That's our aim.
Well, I think hopefully that'll be good timing, and hopefully, things will start to sort of fall into place with all the COVID stuff, and we'll sort ourselves out and be able to travel a little bit more freely again without stressing. I mean, I think that was the big thing with us. Like, we were thinking about, well, we might be able to get on a plane and go to Melbourne or go to Perth or Brisbane and play a show, but then if something happens while we're there, then we're either stuck there or we come home and have to lock ourselves up for 14 days and deal with that. I mean, that's if you can actually get there. Otherwise, we're still having to postpone shows and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully, if you're aiming for end of year, then hopefully that will sort of coincide with some more confident sort of touring and being able to put on shows and get out there and actually be able to promote it and.
Yeah, look, I mean, things were really felt like things were back to normal here in Victoria for quite some time, actually. There was actually, a few local shows happening and stuff, limited numbers, but still good numbers. I think some of the venues had a capacity of 100 people. So, that's always a good atmosphere in a sort of semi sort of sized room. So, but unfortunately, we're back to square one. So hopefully it'll be a week and not, a month or two or whatever. So
yeah, definitely. Fingers crossed. So with obviously with yourself in the band for 27 odd years and playing music for 3 decades, which is just crazy, just such a long period of time. I mean, you're becoming an old fart yourself.
I feel like that sometimes. Like you said before, actually, you'll turn up to a gig and you look around and it's like, play around, there's so many young guys.
I had the shock horror when I started talking about things, and I'd start to say, not specifically back in my day, but I used to say years ago I used to do this, and then eventually I kept saying it. I go, hang on, I've turned into one of the old guys who used to say that to me all the time when I was just coming into metal and to going to shows and all that sort of stuff. So the change of post is happening, and there's definitely a new wave of younger guys coming through now. But
definitely. I mean, like I can't remember which local show it was. Yeah, it's looking around, I was like, far out. I feel out of place here. It's just fun.
All the old guys stand at the back corner.
Look, yeah, it's good. I mean, a lot of the guys from my sort of era when we first started are still hanging around. Like I mentioned before, Chris and VP. You know, we all sort of still catch up and have a laugh and talk about the good old days and stuff. And it's good that, you know, these guys are like Vanishing Point's still going and Black Majesty's still going. You guys are still going, you know. So we still have fun.
And I think it's that. I mean, that's a really common thing that I see with a lot of, you know, you guys and us, where it's, you know, the band's part of your life. It's just you know, I'm no doubt for yourself when you see the word Eyefear. I mean, that's just a, you know, it may as well be part of your name. You know, you're so used to it, and so it's not a case of just, well, you know, it's a little bit of a fad. It's something that I'll just have a bit of fun with for a short space of time, then I'll move on from it and do something different. It's just Eyefear. That's just part of my life. And so I think that's the same sort of commonality with some of these bands that we're really not comfortable, but I think we're just really satisfied with being able to just continuously evolve what we've created and just see what we can do next, but always sort of be consistent by just keeping the band alive.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, if you're still enjoying writing and playing music, I don't see age being, you know, such a huge thing. So as long as you're getting enjoyment out of it, I don't see what the big deal is. So, and the funny thing is, like, we've seen, because we've started so long ago, we've seen how the scene has changed over the years as well, you know, when the internet kicked in and then the whole downloading thing kicked in and no one was buying CDs anymore and stuff. It's just been, you know, I think about it sometimes. It's unbelievable how things have changed from when we first started.
And changed really quickly, like just in the last, you know, 5 or 6 years, you know, it's different again. It's just, it's such a different playing field to even just a few years ago, and it continues to change. I mean, you know, something 6 months ago is, you know, or a certain approach or method or the way people enjoy music is, you know, changes every few months, and you gotta, you know, well, it's up to the individual as to whether you want to keep trying to chase that or you keep just doing your own thing, and it's just, it's crazy. There's always something.
You got to move with the time. I mean, going back to what we're talking about playing live, I mean, I was watching the live Emperor stream the other night.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be the way that the things are going to happen for it, because who knows what's going to happen with this COVID thing and when things are going to open up. So it could be a way of it could be the future. Whereas where they're having, I even watched a creator thing not that long ago. They were playing live with a fake audience. I've seen that. It's I think it was like a Varkin thing, and they had like a fake audience there and stuff. It was just bizarre to see. So, but well, the way the times are, that could be the way things could be going. So, you know, we could be not playing the crowds anymore and just going into a studio or, you know, to a stage and streaming it, which probably isn't a bad thing because you're reaching out to a lot more people overseas as well, especially for us out in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, I mean, like I say, things are just changing. When was the last time one of the big festivals happened overseas? It's been a couple of years now.
Oh, it's been a while. Definitely. Yeah. And I'm seeing it all the time. I'm seeing these bands, like, just they're trying to find new ways just to keep it moving and keep the attention there and keep people paying attention to what they're doing. And I remember years ago, I think Tim was certainly talking about it, and I remember the Tabra guys down in Tassie and you know, the early days of like Twitch gaming and things like that, and you know, there's a lot of discussions around why don't you set up in a studio, or like in a empty venue, and have all the production that you've always wanted to have, like, you know, the big stacks, the big lights, you know, get a license for some pyros and things like that, and just put on a show and film it and then stream it or put it online, and so that's your show. And this was before COVID, but I mean, obviously no one really followed through with it until it became a necessity for a lot of bands, when suddenly they went, well, we've got no choice now, we've got to start doing it. So it's it's interesting to see bands do it, and I think some bands have done a really good job, other bands not so much. I think I saw, I think Destruction's just announced some kind of live release, and I'm pretty sure they're playing in an empty venue, and doing a full set, and they've got all the pyros and everything going and all that kind of stuff. So, like it's maybe it's a short-term thing. Maybe it's just for the next, couple of years and until everything goes back to normal, or maybe this just becomes a standard thing that a lot of bands start to do in their careers.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, let's take the Emperor thing, for example, like I mentioned before. If they were playing in Europe at one of the festivals, then they'd have, I think one thing that it probably does is opens a lot more doors to people overseas to get to see the band play live. I'm not saying live like in your face, but they're playing live on stage, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Without, it's not like your typical live release where everything's fixed up. This is like raw. They're actually playing, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it probably gives you some extra revenue, which you probably would not have had before, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because not everyone's going to fly, let's say, from Australia to go see Emperor play at Varken, if you know what I'm saying. So in that way, in these times, it probably gives you a little bit of extra revenue, but obviously how many times can you do it, yeah?
Well, that's it. You do it the first time, and it's a big spectacle, and it's a novelty, and people really get excited about it because they've never experienced something like this before. But yeah, as you said, you do it again, and it might still be exciting, but not as exciting as the first time, and then it just gradually sort of dwindles off over time. And I guess I've seen people talking about doing shows. Or actually, I think some American comedians have started to do this, where they will do like almost like a pay-per-view sort of thing, but it's only sort of available for certain markets. And of course, if you got like a VPN or something like that, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you'll access it anyway. But it's kind of a way just to, it's sort of like touring, where only certain people have got exposure to what you're doing, and you sort of then change the audience over time, and you virtually tour, which is a bit of an odd one. But look, I mean, that's kind of like the cool thing at the moment. I mean, it's just exciting to see what people are trying, and anything goes, and some stuff just falls on its face and just fails miserably, and other stuff just is a success. And it's cool to watch people experiment.
Yeah, 100%. Like obviously, the bigger bands can afford to spend that extra little bit of coin and, have a bit bigger production than some of the other bands. But, a lot of people, like especially those guys that, just imagine the amount of revenue they've lost not being able to tour and stuff. And then, it just filters right through the people that work behind the scenes and everything. It's an absolute debacle at the moment, but
I think
fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think even if everything went back to normal tomorrow, it would take at least a year or two to get back, like to really sort of get back into where we were before, and people sort of fully employed and sort of catching up with lost revenue and time and all that sort of stuff. So it's I think it's going to be a very, very sort of long, dragged out process where the world's going to take a while to sort of get back on its feet, and then obviously everything else afterwards will play catch up. But like when things go bad or times become tough, then that usually breeds some real resilience and some character from people, and you see some brilliant stuff come out of the darkness. So some people are really good at thinking outside the square and just coming up with different ideas of doing stuff. So in that way, it's sort of, like I said, it's been good, but different, especially from coming from the generation that we're used to, And I'm talking about going over the years, and like even seeing, especially here in Australia, like the scene was so much bigger and stronger. There were so many venues we had back in the day, different and really, really good venues to play at, and how they've all just sort of dropped off over the years. Yeah.
So
it'd be interesting to see what happens once there's a bit of confidence to get out there and do relatively normal things again, because I could start to see glimpses of it here in Sydney. I think Sydney's slowly coming back alive again, and Sydney's suffered for quite a few years, even pre-COVID, with a whole range of different things that have sort of closed venues down and restricted that entertainment aspect of the city. But you start to see little things coming back to life again, and maybe that whole post-COVID world, people will really appreciate just getting out of the house again and being able to go and see a live band and going and interacting with people in that social aspect. And that might encourage, some venues to open their doors again, or to go and build a stage in the back of the venue or whatever it might be. And hopefully, recreate some of this stuff that we've had in the past.
Yeah, well, that's how I sort of look at it as well. I mean, because like I said, there was quite a few local shows that popped up. I mean, I know the guys from Black Majesty had done a show which was really, really good. I think I'm pretty sure they sold out their capacity. I think it was like 120 or 150 people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what we're all hoping for. Whether that happens or not is another story, I guess.
That's it.
Time will tell.
Absolutely. So, it might be a bit of a silly question, but I'm going to try and force you to be a little bit sort of retrospective. But 30 odd years playing music, and 27 odd years with Eyefear. What are the big life lessons that you've learned, like just playing music for that period of time, or even like thinking of like little young you back in the day versus you now? I mean, how much have you changed, and what sort of things, sort of looking back, have you sort of learnt as a result of playing music?
That's a tough question, actually. What have I learned? Well, one thing I've learned to appreciate is early on when I was writing music. I mean, obviously, because I was very young too at the time. I always used to, when I was writing, it'd be all about what would people like, if you know what I mean, and what's sort of in at the time. Especially this was really, really, really early on. And then as time sort of wore on, it was like, okay, well, I'm not enjoying this that much because I'm not doing it exactly the way I want to do it. Mm. And just as we sort of started getting sort of serious about Eyefear, and we were getting the songs down for it, that's when sort of things sort of just clicked. And I was like, and I was sort of doing stuff where I was writing stuff and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I probably normally wouldn't play this, but this is what I'm actually enjoying. So in that way, I've sort of learned that to last as long as what you have to really enjoy and be 100% committed and believe in what you're doing and enjoy it yourself. Because if you're not enjoying it yourself and you're trying to please everybody else, you're not going to last long. That's probably the main thing I've learned this whole time. So that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned. Not to follow trends, and just do what your heart tells you to do, and write what your heart tells you to write. Don't write music for the sake of playing the in thing at the time. So that's probably been my biggest lesson over the years, for sure.
That's probably helped you in outside of music as well, like sort of just having that sort of, that dedication to something, or being true to yourself, not sort of being swayed by what other people might tell you to do or feel that you should be doing, sort of just making sure that, your values are always in check, and if it makes sense to you, then you can do it with confidence rather than... Yeah,
that's right. That's right. And and the other thing is, if you're not going to believe in what you do, you're not going to get to where you want to get to, and you're not going to enjoy. And that's the other thing. If you're not going to enjoy it, you're not going to last long, because you're going to enjoy doing something that they're not enjoying doing. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's probably been my biggest life lesson through the whole music thing, and sort of working as a team is another thing. Not being so narrow-minded and letting other people have their say. Probably stuff like that as well has helped over the years too. It's been really, really good. Yeah. They've been sort of my life lessons in regards to music.
I love it. I think it's just, I've been harping on about this quite a bit recently with different musos and mates, because I think when we talk about like being in a band, we just, you just think about, you write some tunes, you record them, you get out there, you play a few shows, and that's more or less what the whole experience is. But I think it's so underrated how many things you learn sort of indirectly over the years, subconsciously, like just out of, dealing with people, interacting with people, building your own confidence in your character as a person, and, building respect with other people and relationships. And as you said, like teamwork and being true to yourself, and always sort of, not sort of giving in to things that might not make 100% sense to you. So
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff because I don't think it gets talked about enough.
Yeah, I don't think it does either, to be honest with you. And, and probably another thing I probably should have mentioned as well is, learning through the years just to think a little bit outside the box. Like, for example, when we were recording 9 Elements of Innervision, which was our first release to be signed, at the time, not many bands would do. I couldn't even tell you if there was any bands. There probably would have been, but there wouldn't have been many at all. But I think we were probably one of the first bands to open the door as in regards to working with overseas producers and getting it mixed overseas.
Yep.
There wasn't many bands doing that at the time. And when I actually mentioned that to the guys in the band the first time, they were like, oh, what? Who's going to do that? And that's when I emailed Andy LaRock from King Diamond out of the blue. And, the rest is history. I mean, he mixed and recorded he mixed and helped produce and mastered the first 2 releases and, played a couple of leads on the second one, and we've remained in contact ever since. So, thinking a little bit outside the box too and sort of, trying to find different avenues to do different things, because also the other thing it did at the time was us being from Australia and having Andy's name on it with the overseas, it created a lot of interest overseas because, well, why is Andy working with these guys, blah, 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 blah. So, thinking outside the square and thinking a little bit differently, that's another thing as well I should add.
Yeah, you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I guess it's kind of like what we were saying before with what we're seeing bands starting to do now with, doing this stuff online, these streaming shows. It's a willingness to sort of go, well, let's tweak it a little bit. Let's just try. We don't have to do something completely different or drastically different, but let's just be open-minded and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then that's okay. At least we know we've tried it. But if it does, then bonus, extra, excellent. So that's a great thing that I think, and I think a lot of bands like who do really well and have some success over the years, if they look back, they probably see that they have tried new things along the way that have actually helped them sort of go in a new direction that's given them a degree of success.
Yeah, 100%. Because, I mean, you've got to do something a little bit different. The scene is just flooded with bands at the moment. Like, there's that many bands. So you've got to sort of think a little bit left field to get a little bit of, even that little 1%, little bit of different, exposure or, to introducing to the band to somebody different. Anything that will give you that little bit of edge. If your heart tells you to do it, do it.
Love it, mate. Well, I'm gonna put some links in so people can discover Eyefear if they haven't already. And obviously, anybody that has been following the band for a while, I'll make sure that everything's in there so they can reconnect and reminisce and enjoy everything that's been out there so far, and make sure that they're keeping up to date with what's happening in your neck of the woods. And I think, at least from my end, mate, I can't wait for whatever the hell you guys are working on and when it eventually comes out. Because as I said, like when I saw you guys live last, you could see glimpses of what potentially is to come, and it's exciting. And I think just given how long you guys have been doing it for, it's all going to come in due time, and I think when it does come, it's just going to be absolutely fantastic. So I can't wait, mate.
Thanks, bud. Really appreciate that. Look, we're super, super excited about the whole thing. The songs, I mean, everybody says, these are the best songs I've written, but you know what? It's, like the whole thing's been very refreshing, obviously with the introduction of Rick and his ideas and stuff. So we're super, super pumped to get this out. We've been pretty quiet on the social media front, but expect a lot of announcements and news and stuff in the next few weeks.
Okay, friends, now I'm going to dump all the links in the show notes over at andysocial.net and andydowling.net. And of course, I always say it, but also in the description of wherever the hell you're listening to this podcast right now. It could be YouTube, it could be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Overcast, wherever, I don't care. There should be a bunch of clickable links in the description. So click through to Eyefear, to Kosta, follow them on the socials, reach out to Kosta, let him know what you thought of this episode, and Eyefear. Definitely reconnect or connect with the back catalogue. There's so many great tunes from over the years. And I know I mentioned it a couple of times in the episode, but I'm going to say it one more time. man, they sounded good when I last saw them. When I saw them in 2019 in Melbourne with Rick on vocals, just like a breath of fresh air. Just the energy from that band and Rick singing the songs and hearing a taste of what's to come. I mean, man, if this next release is anything like what I saw live, I think they're onto something really special. I think this next release is going to be really special for the band. So go and make sure you're following all the social media pages for Eyefear and wait for those announcements as they roll out over the coming weeks and months. And let's help them make it a big one. It's been a few years between releases, so it'd be great to really see Eyefear have a really, really successful release with whatever's coming on the horizon from their camp. But Kosta's an absolute legend, and stoked to finally, after so many years, get him on the podcast and have a bit of a chinwag. So there we go. Get behind Kosta and the legends in Eyefear. So before we wrap it up, of course, patreon.com/Andy Dowling. Best way to support this podcast. We all know that. And I'm trying to get as many $1 supporters in 2021. $1 a month. That's it. Now, at the moment, you don't get anything for it. You get a warm and fuzzy feeling. You feel good. You're supporting the scene. You're backing your mate Andy. But soon enough, stay tuned. You'll start to get some stuff. So sign up for the $1 thing. It's virtually nothing. It's hardly anything. But when a lot of you guys sign up, it makes a massive difference. Even just to keep me motivated and to get the acknowledgements goes a hell of a long way, in addition to helping ease the financial commitments of running a podcast. And it keeps me sort of focused on having these great chats like with Kosta. It was just great to not have to stress about the costs of production and hosting and gear and getting around town and all that sort of stuff. It's just good to have one less thing that I need to worry about because of the legends over at Patreon. So in particular, I have to thank my top tier supporters. These guys are in my top 2 tiers over at Patreon. These guys are the heavy lifters, the main contributors over at Patreon that help me lift the pressure of all the financial commitments of running a podcast. So thank you so much to Andrew from Perth, Mick G from Sydney, Ash from Deniliquin, Dan from Dapto, Rod from Rayleigh in North Carolina, Patrick from Canberra, Liam from Brisbane, Chris from Sydney, Brendo from Leeton, Tim from Canberra, James from Brisbane, Christian from Canberra, Steve from the Gold Coast, and Andrew from Sydney. Thank you very much, guys. And these legends are part of the wider community of just absolutely awesome, supportive, just good people. Legends over at Patreon. And I was trying not to say legends too many times, but why not? If it's called for it, you need to say it. They're just legends. Everyone's a legend. So patreon.com/Andy Dowling. It means a hell of a lot if you sign up. And as I said, $1 supporters is the goal for this year. Get as many of you guys on board as possible, and we'll take it from there. But guys, until next episode, take care. Keep spreading these episodes around. Dig into the back catalogue. Say hi to all the guests and all that sort of stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Take care and ta-ta.